Welcome back, traders and investors. We have Dan Cook on the line. He is Director of Business Development at Nadex. He started trading equities in the 90s before moving into futures and currencies in the 2000s. He's worked with hundreds of individuals as a coach and mentor, utilizing a technical approach to the markets with an absolute focus on risk management. In his current role as Director of Business Development for Nadex, Dan is tasked with introducing Nadex to the broader trading community and providing educational opportunities for traders to learn about a unique, limited risk contracts offered on Nadex. Dan, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Joel?
Good, good. Now, pretty much went over your market background, but could you just tell us a little bit about your education?
Yeah, definitely. Went to Northern Illinois University, studied there, and actually, the funny thing was, I was really focused just on business, not so much trading, even though the markets were always kind of my interest. I was just like, that's all for like the New York types, basically. They've got the stock exchange out there, and being in Chicago, really got familiar with the futures market. And that's you kind of covered my market background. It was really when I got in. I started trading equities in the late '90s on my own. Didn't really know what I was doing. Seemed like a great idea. Seemed easy, and I soon learned that I was very wrong. Thankfully, in Chicago, it's easy to get exposed to the markets, and had a lot of good friends that were traders and moved into futures and currencies at that point.
Okay, and so why was Nadex formed?
Well, Nadex was formed back in 2004, really under the premise that there was a big void in the markets. Similar to myself, a lot of people are interested in trading, having exposure to the markets, have some funds to take some risk on some trades. But if you're looking at trading oil or gold, these things that we see in the headlines every day, it can be difficult from a financial or risk perspective to trade those. All the contracts on most exchanges are designed for the institutional type investor, large sizes, quite a bit of capital if you want to get involved. And really, Nadex was formed to fill that void. It actually started out as Hedge Street, trading smaller contracts, all limited risk. Because while I firmly believe that if somebody's interested in trading the markets, they should be able to. They need to do it in a sensible manner. And that was really, I think, one of the great things about Nadex, and why I was happy when I finally got to come aboard with them.
Okay, so let's explain the binary option market to our listeners.
Yeah, it's really in its early stages, and it's been kind of I'd call it muddied water over the last few years, but it's really gotten much better now. And the reason I say it was muddied water, where there's not all binaries are created equal, and there were quite a few basically offshore shops, typically outside of the U.S., that were offering what they called binary options, but weren't exchange traded. There was no transparency, and actually, the SEC and CFTC put out an issue about those types of firms. Now, in that alert or advisory, they also named Nadex as one of the places where people can trade binary options. We are an exchange, CFTC regulated, and so there's transparency into the market. We're not taking the other side of the trade. We're simply here to match buyers and sellers. It is a rapidly growing market because, for the reasons I partially mentioned before, every individual, it doesn't matter if you've got a 9 to 5 job, if you're working third shift, if you're a professional trader, all levels can actually get exposure to stock futures, stock index futures, I should say, commodities or currencies through Nadex.
Okay, and so tell us about the procedure to open an account and how much is needed.
Really, it's very easy. It's very similar to opening any type of brokerage account. There's an online application at nadex.com. You can fill out in about 5 minutes. As far as the dollars, obviously anything you put into a market, you're at risk of losing. So it should be discretionary funds. You can actually get started with as little as $100. Some people want to just dip their toes in and try it out. Now again, but whatever you put in, you could put in $100, you could put in 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000. Whatever it is, it should be risk capital.
Okay, and so I mean, there's a lot of other options out there. They started the weekly options. There's always longer term leaves and stuff. But first, let's go over the advantages of the Nadex market over the regular options market.
Well, they really share a lot of similarities. One of the great things both about binary options as well as traditional options are the ability to really limit your risk. For example, if I buy a call, I know exactly what I'm putting up. I know exactly what my risk is, and that's the most I can lose. Binaries are very similar. I think one of the advantages, though, and I've heard this from several people, and it was really, a lot of similarities for me when I got into the options market. I thought, this is great. Everybody says I have to learn these things. But all of a sudden, they started throwing out terms like delta and theta and all these Greeks. And then you got into, oh, it's an iron condor. And I was like, what the heck is that? I think binary options, and I've heard this from quite a few traders, they simplify the process. They have all of the same characteristics as far as limited risk, and in this case in binaries, limited risk whether you're buying or selling, but basically price is a probability. And so everything you need to know about the trade is really right there in the price. They range from 0 to 100. If the market's trading at 30, I'm basically saying the market says there's a 30% chance this event's going to happen. I can buy one contract at 30. And so they really simplify that process.
And so what are some of the disadvantages?
Well, I think I'd say some of the perceived disadvantages are that well they're limited risk, they're limited return, and that's probably the biggest hurdle I think when people look at them is they go, well, they can only go to 100 or they can only go to 0, so I'm limited on that. When somebody actually looks at the way they trade, though, particularly if they're and we're not talking about investing, we're actually talking about trading. They're probably in a trade for a day, maybe a couple hours, a day, at the most a week in most cases. And with the binary options, while they are a limited return, that risk is so fixed, so you're basically buying time to be right in the market rather than getting a massive swing that just stops you out. And so the limited risk might be viewed as a disadvantage, but really if you analyze the risk-reward profiles, it really isn't so much.
So are you strictly trading against other market makers, or are you, trading against other individuals?
Actually, both. There are market makers on the exchange. They're there to provide liquidity. They're the ones that there are exchange rules regarding how they price, the width they can price. So they're really providing the quotes. You could though be trading against another member. For example, if you were on the exchange and trading, it might be Joe Smith out in Montana who's got his bid out there that you say, hey, this is a good price, I want to take it. Every member on the exchange is technically their own market maker as well. They don't just have to take what's offered or bid. They can put in their own price and basically make the market.
Okay. And what kind of advice do you have for investors looking to trade binary options? And what's the best way to learn about the markets?
Like any type of trading vehicle, I'd say start slow, get in. We do offer demo accounts at Nadex. It's a great way to get in, learn the platform, learn how the contracts move. Uh, when I started talking about binaries in 2008, hard to believe that long ago, there was hardly any information out there about them. Now, if you go to YouTube, we have a pretty expansive YouTube network as far as education on binary options. That's the Nadex YouTube channel. There's a lot of information, but I would say start slow, start in a demo, really learn the contracts. The analysis, if you're already trading, is exactly the same. This isn't a different market. It's really just a different tool to trade that market. But you want to definitely understand the characteristics, get in a demo, and hopefully avoid the silly mistakes.
Okay, and just getting away from like all the natives and everything. I mean, obviously, you see a lot of different order flow, different things going on, different characteristics in the market. Are you seeing just like overwhelmingly bullish sentiment from the people that are trading on Nadex, or is it always pretty mixed? And is it a good indicator for turns in the market?
It is. They're actually called predictive markets with binaries, so it can be a good indicator, although it's typically more of a short-term indicator because of the length of contracts. You know, it really is mixed as far as sentiment on a day-to-day basis. And I think one of the multi-billion-dollar question everybody's been asking is what's going to happen to this market? What can actually we've just been in that grind higher, seemingly for so long. I think we're still dependent on the Fed. If the Fed pulls away or even makes a statement that they're going to, I don't think interest rates are going up anytime soon. But we've really seen them drive this market pretty high because really, where else is anybody going to go? So I think the overall sentiment still seems to be fairly bullish with a huge underlayment of caution.
Okay, and just the binary options markets. How's the volume been for you guys? Has it been steady? Has it been increasing? How's it been going for you?
It's been growing pretty rapidly month after month. I think, and part of that is the limited risk nature, and just the fact that there's actually education out there now, where people can come in, they can start slow. A lot of individuals out there, and that's really why we're designed, is to give them exposure to the market. So as that word spreads, we continue to see volumes increase, actually very dramatically.
Okay. All right. We've had Dan Cook on. He's Director of Business Development at Nadex, giving us a really good look at the binary options market. Dan, thanks for coming on, and certainly like to have you on again.
That sounds great. Thank you, Joel.
Okay. Thank you.